Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our April Atherton Disaster and Preparedness team meeting, our community meeting that we meet once a month, the first Saturday of every month, with a few exceptions throughout the year. Today, we're going to be talking about what to do on a high level during the first 3 hours after a disaster if you are all well and good to be able to take action. So with that, we're going to have Tom present today. We want you guys to ask a lot of questions in the weeds, high level questions, anything in between. Type them in the chat or raise your hand with the virtual option on the Zoom, and we'll get to your question near the end. One quick little plug, just for reference. As you guys know, A.D.A.P.T is fully volunteer operated. We have volunteers who are called area coordinators. We have people on the board like us. We're also volunteers, and we work in conjunction and tandem with the Atherton Police Department. The area coordinators and specific committees or teams, if you will, are also a part of A.D.A.P.T. And I wanted to promote the logistics team, which is one of the teams. There's a group of volunteers that helps facilitate making sure there's correct inventory in our emergency trailers, and making, as Tom mentioned earlier, making sure we have supplies and caches in correct locations throughout the town. So you can, after you learn about what to do in the first 3 hours, then utilize those supplies. So we have people like Sindra and Wally Sleeth, who was highlighted in our email this past month, working with Jerry Lugers, who's on our board, and the head of the logistics team. So if you guys are interested in helping with that, we would welcome your support and help in terms of, running generators or helping to do inventory and anything in between. Please email one of us. All of the emails on the A.D.A.P.T website goes to a human, and we reply pretty quickly. And if I missed anything, I apologize. But Sindra, if you are on, please reach out to Jerry, because I do think there are a few things that you guys need to connect on either way regarding logistics. And Brian's on now, so I can pass it to Brian Robbins, our police representative, if I didn't miss anything.
No, Jeannie, let's. Brian, go ahead, please.
Good morning, everyone. I'll start with a little bit of sad news. I will be stepping down from A.D.A.P.T. I'm actually moving out of state. And so Commander Larson will be taking over after this month until someone else is appointed. But in PD news, not much new to report. We are going to be getting an additional 10 flock cameras to kind of complete our net around the town. They have been, once again, a very, very big help in identifying crime and people who want to commit crime in town. Other than that, I believe Chief is still working on the disaster service worker policy and trying to get that going so that we can get you guys official volunteer status, and that you are protected in when there is an event where we need to call upon our A.D.A.P.T volunteers. So that if you do get injured during that, you guys, have at least some kind of healthcare as that is. Other than that, I don't believe there's much else from the chief, but I'm gonna enjoy my last meeting, and I'll miss you guys.
We'll miss you, Brian. It's been a pleasure working with you. Thank you for representing the police department. What state are you moving to?
Texas.
Texas. Okay, great. Thank you much.
Awesome. Yeah, we will miss you, Brian. So you'll learn one last little tidbit or section about A.D.A.P.T training from Tom, and you can take it with you to Texas. You can train Joe Rogan and all those folks out there. So on that note, Rebecca just put in the chat, all of the handouts that correspond with this meeting today are going to be available on the website. They are there right now. And just know, you guys, that we we want to be able to send out this recording to you along with the handouts and a summary if you would like it. So if that's something you would like, please put your email in the chat. You can direct message me if you don't feel comfortable sharing your email with everyone, but we'd be happy to share that with you. It'll also be on our website as well, which is getreadyatherton.org. And on that note, I think if I didn't miss anything, Tom and Rebecca, you guys can get started.
Thank you, Jeannie. Before we start, a couple things. I'd like to acknowledge the fact this is our 10th year, 2021, as a 501c3. Scott Barnum and Peter Carpenter in 2011 formed A.D.A.P.T, which was founded in 2008, into a 501c3. So that's our 10th year, which gives us, a tremendous amount of leverage in being able to operate as a authorized emergency response organization. So thank you to Scott and Peter. Wally and Sindra, get a hold of Jerry. We have ordered new equipment for our DRC, so get together with him. Anyone who wants to volunteer, get a hold of Wally Sleeth, Sindra Nicholson, or Jerry Lugers, and get involved with our logistics group. And one last thing, starting in January, we created a A.D.A.P.T leadership advanced training. Was targeting area coordinators, block and neighborhood coordinators, but it's open to the community as well. So even if you don't want to be an area, block, or neighborhood coordinator, but you would like to learn advanced leadership skills, on the third Tuesday and the fourth Thursday of every month, we get into the weeds in terms of specific disaster response capabilities. Our next one, which is this April, in a couple of weeks, will be called the next 5 hours. What you actually do after you've taken care of your family, how do you help your neighbors? For the area coordinators, it's for them how to set up an EAP and operate it for 7 days. So if you're interested in that, third Tuesday, fourth Thursday, send Jeannie an email and she'll put you on the list. And last but not least, just like to introduce the rest of our board: Jeannie Jensen, Tom Owen, Jerry Lugers, Rebecca Grant, and John Mosby. And without these other 5 individuals that form a incredible team along with myself, most of what we're doing would not be possible. So I want to thank them on this holiday weekend. Having said that, welcome to our session today on the first 3 hours. The first 3 hours in a community-wide disaster are absolutely critical in achieving the goals of personal and family safety, followed up by 7 days of sustainability during that period of time before professional, local, state, or federal responders will be available to assist you. So the first 3 hours is very important to be able to create a foundation upon which you can then build your sustained emergency response. This presentation is intended as a guide to achieving those 2 goals. The first 3 hours of personal and family response activity, as I said, are critical in creating that successful and resilient survival capability and recovery from a disaster. This review is the result of many scenario enactments at our community and neighborhood drills, details gleaned from real disaster after action reports, and then my own personal run-throughs on my property and my neighborhood. This presentation is offered to our Atherton community and adjacent South County neighbors because effective disaster response is a group and team endeavor rather than an individual effort. Don't be concerned about getting all the details today. We will have this information available to you directly if you request it, and it will be on our website as well. It's important that you absorb the gestalt of it, that you get the big picture of it. And then if you want the detail, as I said, we have handouts and copies of the presentation will be in fact on the website. So just ask lots of questions. I'm available. My contact information is available by phone and by email during the week. I will stay over for about 10 minutes after the meeting is over to handle any other questions that you have. Decision-making in a disaster is very critical. It's a different kind of environment than your day-to-day. And we use the model from the US Air Force Academy, which is observe, orient yourself, decide, and then act, and then repeat. Once you do it, create an action, then observe again, orient yourself, decide, and act. In last month's community meeting, we talked about the type of large-scale emergency events that could affect our Atherton community area by area and, parenthetically, the communities around us. As part of that observing, you are using that training tool to discern not only the conditions around you, but also about which secondary hazards are likely to result. Today, we're going to use as a landscape, disaster landscape, a large-scale earthquake in which the following have happened. There's been tree fall, access and egress has made some roads impassable, which makes evacuation problematic. Power poles are down, some power poles are on fire. There may or may not be a gas explosion somewhere in the community. There is the threat of canopy or home fires as a result of power poles falling down. There may be numerous casualties, major or minor. A train may have derailed somewhere along the tracks affecting areas 5 and 6. There may be a hazmat situation. There may be and most likely a prolonged blackout. The Bear Gulch Reservoir may have been compromised, so flooding is possible. And you may be required to maintain a extended shelter in place. Using the A.D.A.P.T. Atherton Assessment PowerPoint, which is on our website, what I'd like you to do after this meeting is over, run through the various scenarios covered in that plan and take a look around your property and neighborhood and assess the possible responses in advance of those conditions and checklists that we provided you in the last meeting regarding disaster assessment in Atherton. And using our website also practice in advance around your home and your neighborhood, the various scenarios that we're going to cover today. Realize that the order in which you will respond to a disaster will be dictated by your immediate situation and surroundings. So what we're presenting today is a template. It's been built upon some very, very solid real world experience, and you adapt it, excuse the pun, to your own situation. Obviously, in an earthquake, right off the top, you're ducking and covering and responding immediately to the disaster scenario presented to you. And immediately you're moving into that mindset of observe, orient yourself, decide, then act. And you just repeat it over and over and over again. So the first thing we do after everything settles down, after the quake is settled and you've ducked and covered, is you are performing a personal health review, personal health check. It's a self-assessment in which you wiggle your toes first, you wiggle your fingers next, you check your arms first, then your head, your torso, and then your legs, so that you can determine if you're injured. You perform basic body movements on all fours, and then you get up slowly to determine your availability to move effectively, establish your spatial awareness and hand and eye coordination. Now, if you haven't ducked and covered and you're standing or you're already on fours, then obviously make the adjustment in the analysis. It is important to know that if you are injured because of disaster adrenaline rush that will occur in a disaster, there'll be a huge spike in your adrenaline. Quite often, you don't know you're injured, or you overwrite it. So self-assessment right away is important, so you know the degree to which you are healthy enough to respond. If you are already injured, then you want to get help, because any leadership role that you take in your family will have to be adjusted accordingly. The next thing you do is you call your family together, you assemble your family. Step number 2. You call out to your family members and gather them in a predetermined safe location on your property. So you obviously establish that in a practice day, and you make a day of it where you go out at, have a barbecue afterwards. It's important to have barbecues after disaster drills, even family ones. That property location may be your front yard, your backyard, or at the curb in front of your home. You grab your bug out bag, known as a bob, and you bring it with you to the safe space that you've established ahead of time. So what is a bob? It's called a bug out bag, the contents of which are on our website. It is a bag that each person in the family has that will last them for approximately 3 days on a minimum level. And in a disaster, you're grabbing your bug out bag and you're meeting at your safe location. In other words, your own personal emergency assembly point on your property. First thing you must determine is, do you have to evacuate or not? To be frank, ladies and gentlemen, the likelihood of being able to evacuate is going to be minimal because of tree fall, fallen poles, traffic jams, traffic accidents, and general chaos. If you do decide to evacuate, have a primary direction route of already practiced, in other words, drive it. Have a secondary route. You won't have a location to go to, but know the general areas that you are going to move to. But as I said, evacuation is not likely. Make a single phone call, because you may only get one, out of state to an acquaintance or a family member and activate your emergency phone tree. Assume that within 30 minutes, if not less, of a major earthquake, there will be no cell service, no phone service, and no Wi-Fi service. That one phone call is to an individual so that you get at least one out, and then you have it set up so that individual then populates your notification tree out of state to let family and friends know that you are safe or the condition in which you are in. Next, you're performing step 3, you're performing your necessary family triage and first aid. Again, you assist everyone to wiggle their toes, their fingers, check their arms first, then their head, torso, and legs. You have them perform as before basic body functions to make sure they can move effectively. Have them establish their spatial awareness and hand-eye coordination, because there may be a little bit of a shock from the earthquake, especially if it's a large one, and realize that they may have a disaster adrenaline rush as well. And so you want to make sure that that adrenaline rush isn't overriding any injury. Step 4. And by the way, we have first aid information on the website of what kind of first aid provisions you should have as part of your home first aid kit. You organize your family members into functional capabilities and your 3-hour goals. And again, you do this in advance. You sit down with the family, you create a plan, and then you go practice it and then have a barbecue, go out to dinner, or go to Baskin Robbins for some ice cream. That organization has a family leader. Doesn't have to be the mom or dad even. It could be one of the older children. However you want to set it up. It could be if you have grandma and grandpa living with you. It could be one of them. Whoever is the most capable, you establish them as your family leader. Someone becomes a scribe with a clipboard or notebook, pen and pencil. The clipboard and notebook will be essential in keeping and recalling critical information when you need to relate it to other individuals or to emergency responders. You follow your family checklist. So that scribe is checking off the boxes, and we have a box. This is a template, which is a box template where you just check off as you go along to make sure that you've done everything effectively. You put on your headlamps, even if it's daylight. You have your gloves, mask, goggles close by. So for me, I have a headlamp, surgical gloves, garden gloves, a mask and goggles in a 1 gallon Ziploc bag for quick access. And it's right on top of my bug out bag. But I also have a headlamp, and so does Dory. And we have headlamps on either side of our bed next to the overhang of the lamps that we have, reading lamps, so that if there is an earthquake and we've taken care of ourselves, we can grab the headlamps and put them on right away. Even in daylight, you want headlamps so that if you have to enter dark areas, you don't have to go back and put them on. So headlamps on right away. You set up your family communications net, which is voice, whistle, or radio. That radio is going to be an FRS walkie-talkie or GMRS walkie-talkie. If your family is ham savvy, you could set up a ham net, but we're recommending that if you have a ham radio, that ham radio is used to contact outside individuals beyond your neighborhood for assistance, and that you set up your own GMRS or FRS net among yourselves. You just predetermine a family channel. That channel is already preset on your radios. You pop your batteries in, you bring it up, you do a net check, and your family is in continuous communication from that point on. You apply additional medical treatment as needed. So you do a double check maybe 20 minutes in to make sure that you haven't missed anything. We had a situation in Loma Prieta that after the quake, this is before I joined, matter of fact, this was before CERT even, my CERT activities. I organized the block because I had to go back to Stanford to check on the computer center. And we organized the block, sent people down both sides of the block. I told them I'd be back in 2.5 hours. When I came back, I had them go down again. And they asked why. I said, just please do it. And sure enough, we found 3 people that we had missed. 3 individuals had locked themselves in a closet, under a bed, and in a bathroom, and then got stuck. So it's important, along with light search and rescue, even on a medical level, that you're double checking to make sure that you're healthy. You're doing a property neighborhood reconnaissance and rapid assessment. You're setting yourself up for a 7-day shelter setup and camp out, and you're thinking about evacuation if that's possible. The most important thing in an earthquake scenario in particular is that it's not going to be the damage that's caused by the first quake. It's going to be the aftershocks. So in the most recent, which is 3 weeks ago now, the New Zealand Tonga earthquake, 7.3, the follow-up aftershock was 7.1, 6.8, 6.8, and 6.3. So in that one, the aftershocks were pretty solid. In Loma Prieta, which was 6.9, the aftershocks were all the 4 aftershocks that occurred within an hour after that were all +5. So it's the aftershocks that actually create additional damage that the primary shock wave from the earthquake does not. And you're always cognizant of what are called follow-on hazard situations that come out of the aftershocks. So you're thinking ahead. That's part of the A.D.A.P.T, observe, orient, decide, and act. And because you are planning ahead and practicing this and walking your neighborhood when it's safe, you're figuring out what can an aftershock create as a follow-on hazard condition. In creating your communications network, as I mentioned before.
Hey, Tom, real quick.
Yes.
Now that we're moving on to the next slide, I saw Nelson had raised his hand.
Sure, please.
Ask your question, Nelson.
Nelson?
Sorry, I just accidentally hit the raise hand button. Sorry about that. I loaded my hand already. Thanks.
Okay.
Oh, no problem.
Okay, good. Again, if you have a question, jump in. That, and we will handle questions at the end as well. Put them in chat, but as we go along, we will take your questions. And as I said, I'm staying over for about 10 minutes after the end of this meeting for additional questions as well. So you're going to set up your communications networks, and that is those radios, those FRS walkie-talkies. Midland 50 is the recommendation we're making for the replacement for the MR355R Motorola, which most of you have, which was the best one on the market. And then Motorola discontinued it, and its replacement was absolutely terrible. So John Mosby and Rachel Kinoshita did some research, and we're recommending the Midland 50 as your replacement for the Motorola 355R. Those radios, there's one each in your bug out bag. So each member of the family has a radio in a plastic bag with separate batteries out of the radio. And so you're opening your bug out bags, you're grabbing your radios, you're putting in your batteries, and you're setting up a net. And you have a preset channel for your family net. And then if one of your family members is a ham radio operator, then you are putting the batteries in, or making sure the batteries are current in your ham radio, and you're starting to listen for communications going outward to higher levels of response. For you in the neighborhood or area coordinators, that might be calling up to your area coordinator, might be calling up to the Atherton EOC if it has which will have a ham band as part of its rollout, or other individuals throughout the Bay Area. So, but the most important thing is to get your family net set up. You will also want to turn on your public radio, your portable radio, and listen for updates. Now, in our leadership meeting, the question was asked, well, will the radio stations be giving us local information? The answer is not. They're going to be giving high-level area information, but it's important to know what's going on around you. So for those of us in this area, it's KCEA 81.9 FM, which is our MA High School emergency radio station. KCBS 106.9 FM, 740 AM, which is KCBS, KGO 810 AM, and KNBR 680 AM. So those are our local radio stations that have been designated as primary communications bands for disasters. So you should have
one great tip that Rebecca did for us, or I think put the idea, at least in my head, Rebecca took a label maker and wrote down those radio stations and we just stuck the stickers straight on our walkie-talkies. So you don't have to memorize them.
Yes.
And those radio stations are also on the emergency plan. So if you have a copy of that, then you should have them handy. Yeah. Tom, sorry, this is Rebecca. I just want to let you know it's a half-hour mark.
Oh, good. I think we're in pretty good shape, Rebecca. Perfect. Yep, we are. Yes, pre-label things. It's really amazing. In a disaster, on one level, you have to become landscape. You have to be 360 degrees around you in 5 dimensions. But on another level, you're going to be portrait. You're going to be focused on task 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is why we've created this template so you can follow it on a task level. We recommended A.D.A.P.T that you label everything. So on your portable radio that you're using, you got it in a bag, you got it in a Ziploc gallon bag. You got the batteries on the outside. You plug the batteries in, and then on the radio or inside the plastic bag is a list of radio stations, and then you don't have to think about it. You can give it to your 7-year-old and say, put the batteries in, dial this in, and it gives that child a sense of participation, takes them out of any shock, makes them feel strong from a disaster psychology point of view because they're part of the solution, and it frees you up, frees your hands up. So step 6, take care of your pets. So we took care of the people, and we now can talk to each other. Secure your pets. Remember, in a disaster, animals can get very, very disoriented and become feral. They could actually suffer essentially a post-event stress disorder. And so you want to secure them, and you want to comfort them. For those of you who live west of, those of you who have 5 acres or live west of Alameda de las Pulgas, have a plan in place for your horses, your llamas, your chickens, and to deal with other critters, especially those of you on the upper side of Alameda de las Pulgas on the west side, because you're going to have critters are going to be discombobulated because of the earthquake, and because your home may be considered a safe space, might show up on your property. So have a plan and practice it. If you think you're going to evacuate, then practice actually loading your horses and your llamas and your goats and your chickens, if that's who you're going to evacuate, into your trailers and haulers, and see how long it takes, especially how long it takes to get from Upper Welsh Road to Alameda de las Pulgas. Now, the truth of the matter is you're probably not going to be able to evacuate, but if you need to evacuate for any reason, practice it first. Get the family involved and do a practice of your those of you who have large-scale animals. Step 7, the next thing you do, so now you've taken care of kind of like the internal issues. You're taking care of you, your family members, you're setting up communications, and you're taking care of your pets. So you're taking care of the loved ones. Now you perform your reconnaissance around your home, your property assessment, your rapid assessment, and your immediate neighborhood surroundings. Have your scribe note the information in their notebook and clipboard. And you are looking specifically around your property for immediate issues, but follow-on issues. Remember aftershocks? What else can happen? To do that, you have to know what's going on around you. So you're checking the 3 properties across the street, the 2 properties adjacent to you on your side of the street, and the 3 properties adjacent to you behind you. The reason why you're doing that is you need to know what's going on in your neighbor's properties, because if there is a compromised home and there could be fire, you have to know that, because you may have to turn your gas off. If there are trees that are partially dislodged, you have to know that in an aftershock, their trees can come down on your property. And utility poles, if there is a utility issue on the other property. The issues in terms of aftershocks are going to be those 3: tree fall, power pole fall, or fire in an adjacent property. Again, aftershocks, aftershocks, aftershocks. Inspect your gas, water, electrical outlets, and panels, and make the determination whether you turn your gas on or turn your gas off, your electrical off, and your water off. You would turn your gas off under 2 conditions. Those conditions are you smell the gas. As you know, gas is odorless, but PG&E puts a chemical in it so you can smell it. If you're smelling gas, turn your gas off. If an adjacent home, that means any of the 3 homes across the street, to the side of you, or the 3 behind you are on fire, you turn your gas off so that you do not become an additional source of creating a canopy or wildfire condition. You want to protect your property. And then electrical, you're turning your electrical off. If in fact there's sufficient damage to your property that electrical is an issue, you would turn your water off for one of 2 reasons. One, because you want to preserve the water that is in the house that you can get to if the house has not been structurally damaged, so that you cannot go in. So you want to preserve that water, because the water mains may be damaged, and then you're going to be bringing in polluted water into your property. And number 2, if you have already a water leak in your home, you want to turn your water off, because the primary problem with a water leak in your home is not the water in your home, it's electrocution from the water getting on electrical devices and or outlets that have been compromised. And believe it or not, it's electrocution from leaking water that is the big problem in a disaster. Any questions so far? Anybody have a quick question of what we've covered so far? Get together.
I do.
Go ahead. Yes, please,
Sorry,
Judy.
Tom.
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
All right. So in our case, Jim and I are just the two people living in our home. And this is going to sound like a dumb question, but is it written somewhere in the A.D.A.P.T information as to how I turn off the gas, water, and electricity? How do I physically do that? Or am I just supposed to know that?
Okay, so in previous community classes, we have discussed that.
Right.
But what I'm going to what we'll do, Rebecca will take note of this. We will put a separate a document up for each of those on how to turn the water off, how to turn the electrical panel off, and how to turn the the gas off. To answer your question.
Thank you. Okay.
Typically, in terms of water and gas, there's a wrench. You have to find your water. You know, you have to know where your water and
So
gas
the
inputs
main.
are. Right, the main is,
Okay.
and you always turn it perpendicular to the flow of the pipe. In other words, you create a dam. So it's
Okay.
always 90 degrees. It's
Okay.
it's real simple. Clockwise or counterclockwise, however you get to 90 degrees, or excuse me, 180 degrees to the flow creates a dam. Now for electrical panels, the recommendation that I make is if your home is compromised and you go to most of you will have 100 amp panels. Some of you will have two 100 amp panels, and you throw the breakers on. They're called sub panels, which will be the 250s. Shut that off first, then shut off the main. So you shut off the 250s, which equal 100, shut off the 100. You do that twice. Then you close all of the circuits. So let's say a typical board is going to have, let's see, I think it's typical board is, I have to remember this.
And I'm sure they're all different.
Yeah, that's somewhere between 18 to 24 on either side. You click them all off.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why that's important. So that when you regain your power, you do it just the reverse. You put the 100 amp panel on first to see if there's any problems. Okay.
Okay.
Then you observe it. You make sure that there's no power problems. You make sure the power is restored. You put your in most of the panels around here. We have twin 50s. So your panels are divided into 250 amp panels, sub panels. You turn those on. You observe. Observe, orient, decide, act. And then one by one, so that you don't create a surge condition, which can cause a fire, you bring your local circuits online and you check them. So your circuits should be in your electrical panel. You should go, as Rebecca and Ginny are talking about, those should all be labeled. So you know exactly where the circuits go. This is the wall panels. This is the refrigerator. This is the freezer, whatever. This is the TV, washer, dryer. One by one, you turn them on so you don't create a surge condition, because a surge condition after a disaster can actually create a fire.
With that, I want to get us back, but Judy, we do have handouts already, and I'm just put a video into the chat to help guide you. So if you want to copy and paste that YouTube link, and our website does have the instructions Tom just outlined. So that's
excellent.
perfect. Thank you, Tom.
I'm sorry to make you repeat. I'm sure it's there somewhere. I just
no.
missed that.
No, it's good information.
Perfect question.
Okie doke.
Everyone needs to know that stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we're inspecting our gas, our electrical, and our water. We're calling out to our neighbors next. Oh, by the way, your area coordinator, your block coordinator may have information about your neighbors. If they don't, go meet your neighbors. Literally go across the street, know the three neighbors across the street, know the ones on either side, know the three on the back side. Just introduce yourself. It doesn't have to be anything in depth, but get to at least know your neighbors so that you can call out, okay? Call out to your neighbors as you approach their properties. When you're doing their property inspections, you're observing their situation, you're orienting yourself to that, you're deciding what to do, as you go forward about your neighbor's condition, and then you're acting upon it. If you can, their gas, water, and electrical outlet panels, if that's possible. Most likely it's not, but if it is, great. Note their conditions. You'll know if there's a gas fire going on in their house because the gas will have a pluming effect and may have a blue tinge to it. And note the weather, very important. What kind of weather do you have? What's the wind? That kind of thing. Note unstable trees and power poles. Check your nose to see if you smell any smoke. Look for fire. If it's at night, look for fire glow. Check for, make sure you're smelling for unusual odors. Note any life-threatening situations in your neighborhood closest to your home. And for life-threatening situations, call 911 immediately and report those life situations. 911 may be down, it may not be. The sooner you get 911 calls in, because it's first come, first serve, then you will most likely, based on their triage system, get help. Move your car to the edge of the driveway is step 8. Facing outward, and you put your bug out bag inside your car. Along with fire extinguishers, we're recommending that you have 2 fire extinguishers, and your boost oxygen, which is for oxygen intake. We have a blurb on boost oxygen, which is used by private pilots and high altitude athletes. The air is going to be dirty. You're going to be under stress. So as we did when we did the shelter in place back in August, we sent the A.D.A.P.T activated the shelter in place for Atherton because of the bad air. Having boost oxygen to keep your lungs clear will be really important. If your home is not able to be occupied after the aftershocks and your backyard camp out space has been compromised, your vehicle is your shelter, your source of fuel, power, and security. So believe it or not, that vehicle, by placing it at the edge of your property facing out, is very important. Facing out, because if you do have to evacuate and can evacuate, you then don't create a congestion problem by backing out and creating an accident. Those of you ever seen any of the disaster movies, there's always at least one clip in there where somebody's backing out into traffic and it creates an accident, and then everything behind it gets clogged up. Step 9. Now, once you've got your car to the edge, now you have to do the last and evaluation of evacuation. So this is the final one. You say, okay, do I evacuate or not? Again, most likely not, but one more time, do you evacuate? If you decide to evacuate, do so quickly with your bug out bags, which means you may have to walk, okay? Secure your home as best you can. Try to notify your neighbors if you're able to do so without delaying your evacuation. Know your primary evacuation route and your backup route. Have an idea of where you're going. Sources of information will be your ham radio, a scanner. Those of you who have the Uniden scan, you can use the Uniden scanner that's scanning all the emergency response frequencies so you can know what's going on. CB radio, public radio can provide information. So I have my ham radio, my FRS radios, and a scanner plus my portable radio. And I'm using my scanner to find out what's going on around me, police, fire, and whatnot. And then I'm using my public radio for general information. Prepare your secondary emergency potentialities. Share them with your family members so your family is acting as a team. And what that means is if you're at work or your kids are at school, plan ahead on how you are going to meet up after you have grounded where you are. So the kids will be kept at school until a individual who's a family member with proper ID picks them up. You need to tell your kids that's what's going to happen so they don't get freaked out and so that they can be prepared and stay calm themselves. You and your wife or husband or the members of your family who are at work, then you want to know what are you going to do at that work location, and then what is going to be your attempted plan to reunite with the family and where. So that's really important to do that in advance. Always, obviously, when you're deciding about evacuation, you're noting the changing weather conditions and you are aware of fire. Step 10. So for the most part, you are going to say, I'm staying. So now what do you do? There are aftershocks, the exits are blocked, your home's structural stability is uncertain. And by the way, we are going to have a one-off class, and we'll let you know on that we're going to provide. It will be free on how to assess your structure as to whether you can go in or not. We're looking at a number of one-off classes that, including a chainsaw demonstration class and a couple of others. So we'll keep you posted on that. And your family members need comfort and shelter. Okay. Your backyard camp out is what I call it, is dependent on a backyard cache, ark, or shed. It's placed in the safest spot on your property, being aware of follow-on hazards. So wherever you place it, you got to think about, okay, what about the aftershocks? Your stocking and your inventory is in your shed, first in, last out. So that's Rebecca's cache, backyard cache. And I believe that's, I think that's Jan's on the right-hand side. So the idea is to make sure that you have enough basic equipment that will get you at least through 3 days, if not 7 days. And I'm available, as are other members of our group, to help you design it. Rebecca, as you can see, and Jan have designed very, very nice backyard caches. I believe the Doctors Warren have a nice backyard cache. But reach out to your friends and neighbors, reach out to us, and we'll be happy to help you. Again, first in, last out. We recommend that you use a clearing, use clear, numbered, and color-coded what do they call them? Cases, containers, excuse me, that you can get at Costco. And you just follow the order. You know, case number 1, case number 2, case number 3, and the color coding with the inventories on that colored piece of paper tells you what each of those contents are. So there is a generalized or a generic color coding for various kinds of equipment. Red, for example, for first aid, light search and rescue, reconnaissance, that kind of thing. White usually is administration, that's clipboards and whatnot. Yellow is communications, et cetera, et cetera. Again, we can help you with that. Again, you want to have 7 days, but minimum of 3. You want to establish your immediate property security. Okay. You have to create a security perimeter. Now, with regards to security perimeters, and having had long conversations with Chief Steve McCulley, these are our recommendations for non-lethal means of self-defense and security preservation. As unfortunate as it is, in every disaster that we have had throughout California and the United States, overseas, and even most recently in the big disaster in San Bruno, the gas fire, bad people want to do bad things. They want to borrow things and not return them. And so you probably want to secure your property. Those methods of self-defense include a bullhorn, a 1-mile whistle, a 1,000 to 3,000 lumen flashlight. A 1,000 lumen flashlight and above will create night blindness that is obviously temporary, even in daylight. So that is a means of self-defense. A boat horn that you can get at Big 5. You want to get the big boat horn, which has a decibel level of 220 decibels, which I found out at Stanford by accident during one of our drills when a construction worker walked in front of me when I activated our horns. we have to evacuate 9 buildings, and we're not allowed to pull the fire extinguishers. This is when I was at Stanford. So we use air horns. And I told this construction worker to stand back because I was going to activate it. And he kept on coming. And exactly at 9 o'clock, when we activated the drill, he walked in front of me as I hit the air horn. And he was about 4 feet away from me, and it knocked him down. So I found out by accident that an air horn, not only is it a surprise and disorienting, but it can actually physically knock somebody down. Wasp spray, and Chief McCauley's favorite is a fire extinguisher. Reestablish then your property safety perimeter, the close-in one. That's the one immediately around your disaster cache, and you're looking for follow-on issues. Deploy the contents of your backyard disaster cache. Secure first aid, medications, and your vitamins. Establish a separate medical area and a morgue if you need it. So if someone has been killed in the earthquake in your family, give them your personal last rites, respect them, and then place them in a separate area for both disaster psychology purposes and health and hygiene purposes and sanitation. Prepare your shelter in place. Now, your shelter in place will either be a combination of your vehicle, your pool house if it's not damaged, or your camp out, which is going to be a ground tarp, a tent, and a canopy, preferably with 3 sides over the tent. So we're recommending that you put a canopy over your tent. Remember that a 4-person tent holds 2 people, a 6-person tent holds 3, and an 8-person tent holds 4. And then put canopies over it. Secure next. So first thing you secure is first aid. Second thing is you double check where you're going to set up your camp out. You secure your food and water. Now you don't have to pull all your food and water out of the cache that you have, your backyard shed, because most likely it's going to be in the back because it's not the first thing you pull out except for some water. But remember that freezers will last up to 48 hours if not opened often. So if you can get to your freezer, fine. If you can't, okay. But just remember, freezers will last 48 hours. Refrigerators will last up to 8 hours if not opened often. Remember that your water requirements are 1 gallon per person per day, which means that the Costco case, which has 40 bottles, is exactly 1 person for 1 week. So if you want a real quick way to determine an disaster water survival needs, just go to Costco, and if you have 4 people in the family, then 4 cases is exactly 7 days worth of water. That includes ablutions and cooking. You want to supplement, have supplements as well, like 5-hour energy drink, emergency, or balance of nature. They should all be in your bug out bag, as a matter of fact. So all of those are in the emergency response teams that I have built at Stanford, not the balance of nature, because that's a new product, but we all had emergency and 5-hour energy drink, and the balance of nature has lots of good nutrients in it also, because you're going to burn up vitamin B, C, D very quickly in a disaster just from the stress alone, let alone the physical activity. Remember, you're going to have an adrenaline rush, and an adrenaline rush is going to start, burning off lots of minerals and lots of vitamins. So you want to have a way of rapidly replenishing those. 5-hour energy drink has those nutrients in it, plus caffeine. Emergency C is a powder, does not have caffeine in it, but obviously it has all the nutrients and vitamins. Reset your communications net with added public radio setup. Connect to others with your ham radio if you have one. You establish your special needs plan. Very important. We're going to have a special class on this. Matter of fact, it'll be one of the leadership classes as well as one of the community classes. Those special needs are.
This will be November.
Yeah. So we're going to after the drill. Yes. So it'll be elderly and handicapped, for those of you who have your mom and dad living with you, or you have a handicapped individual, which means that all of you should have, those of you, irrespective of whether they're elderly or handicapped, should have at least a collapsible wheelchair for each elderly or handicapped person in your household. So Doria's, my wife is partially handicapped, and so we have a wheelchair. Matter of fact, we have 2 garages, so we have a wheelchair in each garage, so that I can grab the wheelchair and we can use it to move her around. Also, the wheelchair becomes a way of moving equipment. So for any individual that's elderly or handicapped, you should have a collapsible wheelchair. They collapse, the ones we have collapse way down, so they're really cool. They cost a little bit more, but they're worth it. Children. For children, you want to set up diversions. So you have a plan that has, they have their own bug out bag, but what kind of diversions are you going to create so that you keep them out of the shock situation or undue stress? They're already going to be stressed. And we found out that in the community emergency drills and neighborhood drills, we could actually effectively, believe it or not, give 7 years old and above simplified instructions. Between 7 and 14, it's one instruction. It's very simple. You give them a responsibility and it takes them out of being a victim and makes them part of the solution, which gives them empowerment, which helps their psychology in a disaster. So, and then obviously you have a plan for your pets. John Mosby, when we give that class, we'll give a portion of that class on what to do for your pets, pet kits and all that kind of thing. Lighting, very, very important, especially at night. So sources of lighting, propane lanterns, LED lanterns with batteries. They last pretty long. Solar portable LED perimeter lights. So I have a box of 24 perimeter lights that are all set up. All I have to do is pull the tab out and they're immediately ready to be charged. They're solar. And so then I can create a perimeter lighting and pathway lighting in my on my property and in my property, so that I can keep my space well lighted at night, which you really want to do, and make it safe to travel back and forth at night. And then headlamps and LED flashlights. So headlamp, headlamp, headlamp. The reason why we're pushing headlamps rather than flashlights is so you keep both hands free, but you should also have an LED flashlight. The nice thing is those flashlights now come at about 300 lumen, which is a very power, for other than self-defense, a 300 lumen flashlight is pretty strong. Prepare for cold and rain. That means caps, coats, and gloves, however you do that. So that's going to be in your cache. A coat or a poncho type of situation may be in your bug out bag, but you want to have cold weather gear in your cache. Sleeping bags, emergency and regular blankets, ponchos, and then heat. So the heat that you're going to provide is not going to be probably in your local shed there, but it's going to be a barbecue pit or a fire pit. So you make sure that you have wood that is, you have enough propane to provide the barbecue pit. So I have 3 propane tanks in spare, plus the one in my barbecue pit. The propane tanks are spread on the property so we don't create a fire issue, and they're marked with the proper signage. And then I make sure that my wood pile is in good order for my portable fire pit, the ceramic fire pit on wheels.
It's Rebecca. Just want to let you know it's running up on 1 hour.
Fantastic, thank you. So again, think of that in advance. Again, having propane and wood for your fire. Have a fire starter kit. A plastic bag that has some of the best fire starter, believe it or not, is dryer lint. A bag of Fritos, believe it or not. If you ever seen that demo of that, Fritos are very flammable. Cotton balls with Vaseline on them, or wood shavings, that kind of thing, or wood coat that's coated in Vaseline. Good fire starters. Your sanitation unit is in the primitive sanitation unit is toilet paper, a shovel, disinfectant agent, and plastic bags. Or a self-contained unit. So Rebecca has a self-contained unit with a privacy enclosure. So you can purchase those online, but in a pinch, you need to know how to dig a hole, have a disinfecting agent to be able to cover up the ablutions when you're done, and then and know how to do that. Know how to actually, if you have to go primitive, how to do that. In other words, a camp out situation. Have a hygiene
And Tom,
unit.
on that, Brian, Robin, or our police representative, Brian, wanted to touch more on the security real quick, but before we moved on. Is that
Please.
okay?
Oh, no, Brian, go ahead now.
Sorry. So just a couple of quick things. Going back to what Tom said about security when bad people want to do bad things. First and foremost, when bad people want to do bad things, they're usually going to do it in a disaster situation like this. They're going to be more desperate in that aspect. They're going to want what you have, especially if it's for their survival. Sometimes the best course of action, because a lot of the options we say non-lethal, is first and foremost just to cooperate and give them what they want, because your life is more important than your stuff. If and when it does become that situation, those non-lethal options, when doing those, the next most important thing is to have an escape plan. Unless you have enough people to overpower your attacker and then secure them after you're able to temporarily immobilize them, the best option is to, immobilize them and flee, so that you protect yourself. Other less lethal ideas, there are civilian tasers, essentially, which will work to immobilize somebody up to a minute, which can give you enough time to either secure them and or secure an escape. But just other things to think about, sometimes the best option isn't to fight, it's to flight. It doesn't always work out, as we've seen in law enforcement many times. When victims fight back, sometimes the most worst thing happens. So just take that into consideration when you make your plan. Only do what you're comfortable doing, and take into the amount of people that you have to protect and or secure their safety into consideration.
Thank you, Brian. That's really important. And the key to Brian's point there is know your own limitations. Know in advance what you're going to do at the degrees of escalation of that kind of scenario. And last but most important, interesting enough, numbers. The more that you know your neighbors, the more that neighbors are working with neighbors. Bad people doing bad things hate numbers. They hate numbers of people who look like they know what they're doing and act like they know what they're doing. So get to know your neighbors, even if you're not a block leader or a neighborhood leader or coordinator. Get to know your neighbors and create that, in one sense, like that neighborhood watch mentality, so that all of you come together and make it less likely that people are going to drive down your block because they see too many good Athertonians acting like they know what they're doing. So numbers, numbers, numbers. Thank you, Brian. That was very helpful. Any other question, real quick? Follow-on question to Brian before we move forward. Okie doke. So now we've just talked about sanitation. If you have to go primitive, remember you should have a shovel, a strong shovel, one that won't break, extra toilet paper, a disinfecting agent that you place on top of the ablutions when you're done, and then you cover it over with dirt, and then plastic bags for disposal, if that's how you want to do it, with plastic bags rather than just leaving it in place in situ. Otherwise, get yourself a self-contained unit that you can certainly purchase online anytime. So that takes care of sanitation, and the reason why that's important is because come day 5 or 6, if you do not have that secured, you're going to have critters come by, but you're creating a health situation that could end up being a secondary cause of injury to you, and you want to keep your area sanitized that way. Hygiene. Have a personal hygiene kit, gender specific for each member of your family, which also would include water, towels, and baby wipes. Baby wipes was recommended by one of our area coordinators when we made this presentation to them, that baby wipes is a great add-on to a personal hygiene kit. One of our area coordinators also mentioned that you can get solar shower units, just like you can get a self-contained sanitation unit. But remember, your solar unit uses up water, so you want to be very mindful about that. Food preparation. Barbecue pit with a spare propane canister, a propane stove with spare canisters. Again, use up your refrigerator first, obviously, and then your freezer second. And if you're inclined, share your food with people so that you have the enticement of creating a group environment, because the people that survive best in a group rather than as individuals. Save your canned food and dry food for an extended camp out. The dry food should be the last that you use because it uses up water. So, and canned goods will last much longer than their expiration dates. Firefighting. You may be called upon to put out a small fire, okay? In other words, put it out before it becomes a large fire, or to contain a fire maybe as it approaches your property. Your pool is a great resource for firefighting as well as water. If you're using it for hydration, then you get a life straw bottle. You can get a big 5, and you use your swimming pool as a source of water. The life straw bottle then becomes its own storage unit. But your pool or utility source, if the utility source is still providing water, a pump, and 100 feet of 1.5-inch hose. Now, the Doctors Warren about 2 years ago did a really great job for us in Atherton. They went and they researched pool pumps and firefighting equipment. We found in fact, they found a company in Florida who designed one for essentially Atherton based on the Napa fires 2 years ago. And we had that information on a website. You can also go online and look for others, but they did the homework for us. Matter of fact, I went over to their house when they called their neighbors out and they demonstrated their firefighting capability. They have 2 hoses, and they can quickly set up their pump, put it in their pool, and protect their property.
Hey, Tom?
Yes.
With the 5 minutes left, I wanted to see if we could start Q&A super soon to be respectful.
Okay, I've got 3 minutes. Fire extinguishers, at least 2, and last ditch is shovels and dirt. So just like Cal Fire does, it's the old shovel and dirt routine. Property debris clearing is essential. You've got to clean your properties up as quickly as possible. Chainsaw with a gas or electric. If you use an electric, then you want a 2.5 kW generator. Otherwise, it's gas for your chainsaw. Shovels and rakes. Use fuel from your vehicle if necessary for your chainsaw. Use wagons and wheelbarrows. You want to clean the debris from your property for both sanitation purposes, safety purposes, and to prevent fire. And last but not least, you develop your critter remediation plan for both domestic pets and wildlife in your area. Atherton, there's going to be wildlife that's going to be disrupted even in Central and West Atherton, and maybe even East Atherton, and you want to have a critter remediation plan. As I finish up here, important things to remember: maintain your hydration, watch for low blood sugar and exhaustion, check in regularly with each other as a family unit, watch for disaster psychological cues, for disaster stress disorders, and think outside the box and expand the scope of available resources. On that note, I'd like to remind all of you that our next community meeting is going to cover the next 5 hours, is the title of it. And it's not only for those of you who are in leadership roles in your communities throughout the South Bay, but those of you who just want to be able to reach out to your local neighbors. And what do you do after you get yourself settled? Because you're going to be there for 7 days. And remember that disaster survivability and sustainability are a group effort. And that's what we're going to cover next time. We'll have this information on the website. And now questions.
Yeah, anyone feel free to type in the chat or raise your hand or unmute if you'd like to, but Tom is available and he's a wealth of knowledge to answer any questions about this topic.
Tom, this is John Malbech.
Hello, John.
Hi. You were talking about going around, well, two things, checking the 8 adjacent houses around your own property, and then looking at situations where you would turn off your gas.
Correct.
If some of those houses are not occupied, I can imagine a situation where you might want to turn off your neighbor's gas. What do people think about that?
You just asked an incredible question because let's see. Brian, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
So this is a great question because I've had the same question that John is asking is, if these homes are a ghost home and you want to ensure that, they're going to have gas, light, and water probably on, what is the APD's position of securing those properties around you if they're ghost homes? Is there any kind of an official point of view? Because my instinct would be probably like John's to, conditionally, evaluate the situation and maybe turn it off, but maybe not. But what is the position from APD?
So what I would say from a legal standpoint is, since you guys are private citizens, you walking onto your neighbor's property is a little different than, say, me walking onto someone's property. My recommendation would be to try to reach out, even if it's a ghost home, try to reach out to whoever is the property manager or the owner, see if you can get just in a working relationship and understanding that, hey, I understand that you guys aren't always here. In an event where there is something going on, I'm trained in this kind of stuff, and to say that I would be more than happy to go over to your home and turn off those things so that your property isn't damaged. If you make it incentivized for that it's a benefit to them, you kind of always want to get permission, right? Because there is always the issue where, at least just say by chance they do have a security system that's still working in that kind of event, and they see somebody walking on the property, they could start calling 911 to then, hey, there's people trying to loot or vandalize my home, not understanding it's the neighbor, which can then pull law enforcement resources away. So it's going to be a very touchy issue. That's why I say pre-establish a relationship, and as Tom always says, get to know your neighbors, even if they don't live there, right? Try to find some way to be in contact with them so that you can make these kind of plans. If by chance it's a super emergency issue where their house is next and then yours, and it's a good strong chance that if their catches fire that yours is going to catch fire, well, that's a decision that you have to make in order to protect your own home.
Yeah, I totally concur with Brian the way he's laid it out. If it's critical, if it looks like you want to prevent a cascade fire or a canopy fire, then that would be the situation that you could, make your decision and act upon it. But follow Brian's guidelines. Other than that, get to know your neighbors. That's the key. Get to know your neighbors. Other questions? Yes, Brian, thank you. Yes.
In our neighborhood, when I go around to sign up a neighbor for Neighborhood Watch, a new neighbor that's moved in or something for Neighborhood Watch, I have a question on their form that they fill out for their name and address and contact information, allowing permission for a neighbor to turn their gas off should it be necessary in an emergency or disaster, and they initial it.
Good. Now that'd
I
be a
don't
good
know if
idea.
that
Yeah, but that tells,
works
yeah.
legally, but that's
Yes, it
what we
does
do.
work. See, that covers the legal aspect. If they initial it, then you have a document, and they have a document for you. That way, when you do it, then it's been by prior arrangement, and it's conditional. So therefore, there's a lot of legal protection. Thank you, John. Someone else with a question.
Robin, to answer your question in the chat, I put the link into where this recording will be held within about a week.
So I'd like some feedback. We got a couple more minutes. I'd like some feedback. Has this been helpful for those of you attending as to going into the weeds a little bit in terms of how you specifically respond using this template? Because this template is a checkbox template, so that you can have it for yourself, for your neighbors, and for your family members. I'd like some feedback about the effectiveness of this presentation in terms of by going into the weeds and helping you out.
Yeah, Tom, this is Barbara Kostick. That was a very good presentation. It added a lot more depth to the things that we need to know. Thank you.
You're
I thought
welcome.
it was wonderful also. And I'm wondering if the things that you covered, are those in the booklet that we've picked up at different times in the city?
Actually, they're not, Connie. But that's why we are expanding our video vault and our resource library on the website, so that you can.
Can you send your email, Connie? If you put it in the chat, I will get you the updated stuff.
I'm sure you have my email. I get everything from you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Tom, sorry to interrupt you.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it.
Yeah, Connie, the handbook, we obviously have to update it, but that's just kind of an initial welcome to Atherton,
Okay.
point, just to get you familiar. But we're going to use the website as our because of the cost of having to update that handbook all the time, and we're going to have to revamp it. But we're going to use the website as your primary resource so that you can download documents, checklists, recommendations of where to purchase stuff, and so that you can build your own personal handbook that you literally.
Okay.
We're building handbooks for the area coordinators, but there's no reason why you shouldn't have your own handbook, that when something happens, you grab the handbook, you open it up to the page, and you then follow the template, that kind of thing. Because the more that the individual is taking care of themselves, the better they're going to be able to help their neighbors.
Thank you.
Thank you, Connie.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. It was very helpful.
Thank you, Erica.
Very helpful.
Frolicker. Thank you for the comments. The whole idea, and by the way, next time we're going to be doing what's called the next 5 hours. And it's obviously directed for those people in leadership roles, but it's important for you, even if you decide not to be a block, neighborhood, or area coordinator, to be able, after that first 3 hours, to get yourself established, be able at least to take care of the people immediately around you for your own sustainability, because everybody around you affects you. And we're going to go into the weeds on that as well. So it'll be another in-depth presentation. Again, the checklist will be on the website. The idea is get the gestalt of it and then modify it. It's in an Excel format, so it's easily able to be modified. Modify it. You can make it more detailed if you want for your own neighborhood. The key is know how to have a backyard cache, know how to camp out in your backyard. We are going to have a one-off class on chainsaws, on how to evaluate your own structures down the road. So this year we're getting into the weeds, so to speak. We're getting much more detailed in how we present knowledge to you so that you have that confidence and certainty to lead your family and then at least be an asset to your neighbors. Going forward, May 5th is our next community meeting, which will be entitled The Next 5 Hours. Our leadership classes are on the third Tuesday and the fourth Thursdays of the month. You're all welcome to join. If you want to have that advanced leadership training, just send Jeannie your email or put the email in the chat there with that recommendation. Is there any other questions? And as I said, I'll stay over for 10 minutes, but if there isn't any, I'm going to end my portion of our presentation today with a very blessed Easter and Passover to all of you who observe those holidays and holy days. And I turn it back over to Jeannie for any business information she'd like to share. Thank you all.
Thank you, Tom. I think you covered it. Please join us on May 1st for our community preparedness next 5 hours meeting. And please, if you didn't feel comfortable sharing feedback in front of everyone, email one of us. You won't hurt our feelings. We really want to be able to support you and support the town. All right, with that,
wait,
I appreciate
Jeannie,
all of you. Yeah,
Jeannie, I'd like to say something. This is Robin.
yeah.
Tom, I couldn't watch today because I had some stuff I had to deal with, so I've just been listening. And I have to tell you that this is one of the best presentations I've heard in a long time. And I didn't even get to see the slides, and it was a good presentation. Very, very well done. So I thank you.
Yeah.
And I can't
Tom
wait.
does an excellent job.
He does. And so I
Yeah.
can't wait to sit down and watch. I'm going to watch the video with Art so we can see it all. So thank you. That was great.
And
Thank
Robin,
you. That's great.
yeah, and get the checklist that will, the handouts, so that you can have the handouts in front of you so that you can go through the handouts as well.
I will.
The thing is, one of the things we're going to try to do, I meant to mention, we are going to have the Atherton Community Emergency Drill number 5, even though last year we couldn't have it. So number 5 is this year. It is going to happen come hell, high water, or COVID. It will be COVID compliant, but we are going to have a drill this year. And we know how to put on neighborhood drills that are COVID compliant because we've already done 2 of them in Menlo Park neighborhoods. The most recent was Sharon Oaks. So if you want to have me give your neighborhoods a presentation similar to this, or this presentation to your neighborhoods, I'd be happy to do it. We'll just set up a Zoom meeting. If you want to have a neighborhood drill that will be COVID compliant, let me know and we can do that. So the nice thing is now that we've had the scripts and the Zoom, we can make this presentation to, let's say, your entire block one evening. It's an hour and a half. So let us know because this is portable.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks,
Thank you, Jen.
Jeannie, Rebecca, Tom, John, everybody involved.
Thanks, Jan.
Thank you all. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Jeannie.
Okay. And as I said, I'll stay over for a couple of minutes after 10:30. If you have any questions that you want to ask then, and then Jeannie, I guess we're closing up officially for today.
Yeah, I will make you the official host and I'll leave the meeting.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Jeannie. So anybody else who has any questions, this would be a good time if you want to hang over.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
Good to see you, Tom.
Good to see you.
I had kind of a silly question, Tom.
Okay.
I was just curious how you make the decision of how far to go when you're looking at your neighbors' homes. I mean, obviously, if you open your door and there's a fire, you've seen what you need to see. But if everything looks peaceful, do you go to the point where you can actually physically see their structure if it's, behind a gate or something? Or do you just kind of stay on your own property as much as possible?
Okay, good question. And I have a very precise answer for that. So first you're doing your property. So it's concentric circles. So you walk around your property. Okay, so that's your house. You're evaluating the structural integrity of your home. Then you're moving out to about halfway between your home and your fence line. And you're taking a look at you're getting an orientation, an observation of the general area halfway in between, because that's where the structural instability is going to affect out to about that portion or radius. Then you literally go to your property line and you walk your entire property line. Now, while you're walking your property line, you're looking over the fence, if you can, to see what's going on the houses to the left and to the right of you on your side and behind you, okay, if you can, okay. Once you've established the perimeter and you're generally observing, unstable poles, unstable possible fire or smoke in the adjacent property, or tree fall or potential tree fall, you go outside, you put on, you take your scribe with you, 2 people, and you walk the area. So the area that you're immediately walking is only out to the edge of the 2 properties on either side of you, the 3 properties on the front of you. The properties are behind you. You're going to have to jump up on the fence and observe, okay? You're not going to walk all the way around the block because, as you know, some of those blocks in Atherton loop, and it creates a safety issue for you to do that. So you don't do that. And you walk up to the wall or the fence, and usually even if it's a walled property, the access is going to be mostly has grills on it so you can peer in. Okay. If you can't, you can't. If you know it's a ghost home, you've been given the legal criteria from the Atherton Police Department as to what you can do, which is if there's imminent danger, you can protect your property. If you're not sure, then you get to know your neighbors. Now, what happens if it's a ghost property? Well, Tom, I don't know. I haven't been able to find anybody there. So there was a gentleman who called me up and said, I have a neighbor who has a tree that's falling on my property and it's a ghost property. What do I do? So I asked that individual, matter of fact, I had that individual called Mr. Ovadia and the arborist to come out and take a look at it. And I said, well, most ghost properties have gardeners to keep up the properties. And so sure enough, he waited and he found the gardener, and through the gardener, who then contacted the owner, he was able to then work with the city to actually take down the tree. So there are ways to find out, even with ghost properties, and you can go to the city and at least pull up the public records as to who owns the property. That's public information. That's you can get from the county, and then try to get a hold of the information that through writing, you get permission, as John has pointed out, with your neighbors, even if it's a ghost home, that in the case of an emergency, you're an asset to that owner who is absentee to be able to save their property. So that's what I would do. I would do everything I can within safety. I'm not necessarily jumping a wall unless, if you've got a fire that's proceeding down the block, you want to stop the fire, not when it gets to your neighbor's house, but on the other side of your neighbor. So you would turn off the electricity, and you would at least turn off the electricity, and you would turn off the gas. So that's my precise answer. A lot of it has to do with getting to know your neighbors, but APD has given us a very clear legal outline, and I'm very proactive. I mean, I can't jump fences anymore, but granddaughter number 2 can, who's at the house. And so she could jump the fence, but only in a dire situation where we have to turn the gas and electricity off. Does that help?
Yeah, got it. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So it's really cool today. We actually got guidelines from PD as to and thank you to John for that question, to know exactly what we can do as emergency responders, that if it's a threat to your home and it is a vacant house on the other side or across either side across the street or behind you, you can do what you can to protect your home. Obviously, knock, call, blow a whistle, use a bullhorn, make yourself known. Do not walk into a property thinking it's a vacant property when it's not. Number 2, if you do, remember a lot of ghost homes have dogs, believe it or not, that are maintained by a whole house manager who comes in twice a week, who feeds the animals. So be aware there might be a protection dog there, and know how to deal with that. By the way, and how you deal with it is make sure you have a walking stick. that you can keep an animal at bay. And in that case, you're using wasp spray as your self-defense against a guard dog. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Tom, I just wanted to let you know that I noticed there were at least 6 people who take part in the Monday night ham cert that were part of this. So that's really great because they're going to pass all that information on.
Oh, that's exciting. Thank you, Joan. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, John Mosey, are you still on?
Yes, sir.
Okay, would you get together with Joan and also Tom Owen, because I'd like the 3 of you to participate in the presentation of the communications June community session, because the 3 of you are obviously part of the A.D.A.P.T community and are, along with Frank Adams, I'd like to possibly the 4 of you to put together a presentation where each of the 4 of you have just a little bit in that presentation, in the weeds kind of instruction on how to set up a neighborhood and community network. So be thinking about that. That's 2 months away. John, if you'd work with Tom Owen and Frank and Joan to put it together, I'd like to highlight the 4 of you because you're all incredibly essential communications SMEs, subject matter experts. So I want to
hang in there, Joan.
No, I would suggest Robin because has much more experience in this than I do.
However, you have the experience of someone who shows up on Monday nights and has that intermediate experience. We want to have all levels of experience.
So does Robin. Robin is a longtime ham operator.
Right.
So I think you should use Robin McLeish.
Yes. Well, okay, I'll talk
Joan,
to you.
You would be surprised. You and Robin have a lot of commonalities.
Right. So Joan, we'll talk. Joan, we'll talk later.
We'll talk later.
Yes.
Yes.
Offline.
Don't sell yourself short, Joan.
Yeah. So notice those of you who are still on, of which there are 15, we're going forward. It can't be, we're very aware it cannot be the Tom show because it doesn't work that way. So I'm giving these 3 presentations, which were the disaster assessment, the family response, and then the neighborhood response. But going forward, we're going to have our guest SMEs of the Atherton community giving the presentations going forward, including our medical team and our communications team, so that you see that we have a community full of very, very talented people, but also as an inducement and an encouragement to continue your own disaster response growth and to be eventually a presenter, because Tom's not always going to be around. And it's important that we have, as a succession plan, we have people who can replace any one of us on the board or any one of us who make presentations. We have to be 2 and 3 and 4 deep in terms of our ability to share this incredible knowledge that we have. Someone else?
Tom, I had a quick question about the cash work that is being done in Atherton. So is that totally separate from Menlo Fire?
Yes, it is. So Atherton has a DRC. Has a Menlo Fire DRC at Holbrook Palmer Park. So so there are 7 disaster response caches, as you know, and the Atherton one currently is in Holbrook Palmer Park. However, Atherton owns and actually pre-owned 3 disaster response caches before even the Menlo Fire DRCs were created. We have one currently deployed in East Atherton at the Luger residence. We have the Central Atherton, which is at Holbrook Palmer Park, and we have the West Atherton at the Nicholson residence. We are purchasing a fourth one because we realize we don't have adequate coverage in West Atherton. So we divided West Atherton into two sections, one west and far west. So the area above Alameda de los Pogos will get a new DRC, which we are hoping to get approval to purchase this year. And then to fit, we're hoping to put it in above the Bear Gulch Reservoir is the tentative approved location. So the A.P.T approves our location. So they've approved the Luger household, Holbrook Palmer Park, and that'll get moved back to the police station once the Civic Center is done. The Nicholson location, and then obviously above Bear Gulch. So yes, we'll have 4 DRCs. We used to have an MRC, but that was taken back by the fire district. They came in and drove it away. So what we've done is all of our DRCs will have a 25-person medical kit in it, which we think is sufficient. So every one of our DRCs will double as a medical first aid station with a 25-person kit in it.
So can somebody from outside Atherton help with the work that needs to be done on those?
Yes, if you want to be part of the logistics team, you're talking to Jerry Lugers. Okay, and he's A.D.A.P.T is his email address on our website. We'd love to have you as be part of our logistics team. We currently have 3 people. I'd like to see having us have 5 people, because I believe it takes 5 people minimum to effectively maintain a DRC inventory, of which we will have 4. And I want to make sure that, and our DRCs are a little bit more upgraded than, let's say, that Menlo Fire, because we have chainsaws and generators, where the Menlo Fire has made a decision not to do that. We have generators and
currently there are still chainsaws and generators in there, so I don't know what's going to happen with that. But they're it'd be nice to work with some logistics people that have been working more at it than what Menlo Fire have been doing.
Right. So, yeah, certainly. Just get a hold of Jerry. Absolutely, that'd be great, Kurt.
So
by the way,
it's on your his contact would be on your Atherton website.
Yes. Kurt, for those of you who don't know, is the logistics leader for Menlo Fire, the DRCs, and he's working with them to revitalize their DRC program. They have 7 DRCs attached to fire stations and/or, in our case, Holbrook Palmer Park. And they have 2 Conex boxes, one in the Triangle area of Menlo Park and one over at
Church.
The new community church up on Middle. So anyway, welcome, Kurt. We'd love to have you be part of it. One of the things that I'm aware of, because I'm really concerned about DRCs in Atherton, is you really do need to have a team of minimum of 5, so that you really once a month are going in there and exercising your chainsaws and exercising your generators to make sure that when disaster really does happen, you haven't let them sit there for a year and a half and they've gunked up and you can't use them. Or that matter of fact, we just reordered our MREs, we reordered water. We just ordered our 25-person, they just arrived, our 25-person medical kits that go into the our DRCs. We also ordered chainsaw safety equipment, which we didn't have before, and we're getting a mannequin. So Jerry is heading that up and doing a fabulous job with that. We'd love to have you or anybody else join that logistics group.
Okay, I'll reach out to him and see if I can work with him.
That'd be great. Thank you so much.
I wanted to mention one more self-defense thing now that we're here at the end.
Okay, yeah.
You can get just from Amazon, basically it's a 14 or so inch flashlight, 16-inch flashlight that is also a bang stick.
Okay.
And we take that on our nighttime walks.
Okay. And it's legal in California then, right?
It's legal in California. It's a flashlight that's a taser. That's not a taser, but isn't taser the ones that throw things? This doesn't throw things. It's
Right.
a bang stick.
Yeah, okay, bang sticks are, yes, they are legal, as are tasers. Now, I'm glad that I did not put tasers and bang sticks on the list because I had not received any kind of communications from the police department that they were recommending it. Now that tasers, which is a distance form of a bang stick, saying
Right.
that would be okay. This is really exciting because I'm going to add that to my script here, because having people know that they can use a taser or this, because I'm familiar with the flashlight bang stick because I own one.
Yeah,
and
for
the thing
me,
is,
it's great.
Yeah.
You know, for regular evening walks, if we're out walking after dark,
Right.
or there are dogs around, and we've never had to use it, but we use the flashlight all the time.
And the thing is if I'm walking around at night, believe it or not, I actually have my wasp spray with me because I'm not interested in, any kind of confrontation. And I have the wasp spray that can shoot it about 8 feet,
Got one at every door.
the high velocity, which means I can take care of dogs, I can take care of people, because I'm not, I'm too old to be doing, Aikido, which is what I'd use, but I'm a little too old for that. So I'm, again, wanting to present to the Atherton community non-lethal ways to do it that keep everybody at a distance. And believe it or not, these boat horns at 220 decibels, if you put it at arm's distance, when I knocked down that contractor at Stanford, I was amazed that it had that concussive force.
Yeah.
And I go, holy smokes. That was, remember when we used to do the drills at Stanford, when we had to use the bull horns, the air horns.
I do remember. Yeah.
You had to use the air horns to evacuate our buildings because they wouldn't let us pull the fire alarms. So anyway, that's the goal. Obviously you have a Second Amendment right to, own and be able to be proficient in a firearm, but not everybody's inclined that way, and that's okay. But
and you can't take your firearm on your walk.
That's right. And on top of that, Brian pointed out that in disasters, bad people are more likely to do bad things because they're in survival, and they don't have, they're not thinking ahead and have 7 days worth of survival gear in their house. So they're going to borrow it, and they may be very enthusiastic about borrowing it. And so the comments that he made is, try to dissuade them first. Maybe you give them a little bit and they'll go away. But if you have to defend yourself, then the fact that, matter of fact, everything that I presented to you has been endorsed by the chief of police. So he went through that entire list and said, go for it. He was the one that added the fire extinguishers because that's his favorite. So it's important to realize, I know it's a tough topic for people to hear because they don't want to know that their society could do that, but it's a reality. In every disaster scenario that I've done read the after action report, that issue of individuals coming to borrow things and not return them does show up very quickly. In San Bruno, literally, as truck 59 and truck 61, which were the two aerial trucks, were pulled out of San Bruno, and the fire department was pulled back and the police were pulled back. The Crips of Daly City and the Bloods of San Bruno created a truce and rolled in as the police rolled out. And during that fire, 47 homes were looted while the entire area was burning. Same thing happened in Katrina, same thing happened in Houston, same thing did not happen in Joplin, because Joplin is a community that has a concealed carry, and so the community said, no, you're not coming in here to loot. And so there was no looting in Joplin when the tornado. And in Joplin, you talk about search and non-search getting together. It was the community that ran their hospital with 1 doctor and 2 nurses for 3 days. And it was all civilians, except for 1 doctor and 2 nurses, before all of the emergency response could show up. So again, I'm encouraged by the fact that other places in the United States, people get together and they solve the problem and they do it quite well. What we're doing here is giving you checklists, and we're going into the weeds and giving you training so that you're comfortable and certain about doing it, especially in leading others who are going to be, maybe concerned, but they're not going to have that leadership skill set that you are learning from these presentations. Excuse the standing up on the soapbox there, but I'm enthused about this. This is really cool stuff that we're putting together to present.
It's very cool stuff. I'm going to have to sign off. I just want to say thank you again for an amazing presentation. I can't wait to watch the rerun.
Okie doke. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
And for the remaining 11 of you, again, if you want me to do this presentation in your neighborhoods or your block, just let me know, let Jeannie know, let Rebecca know, and we will put on this presentation. It only takes an hour and a half, including questions. We can also do the damage assessment one. Kathleen Simodius didn't attend our last one, which was a damage assessment. I can do the damage assessment for Menlo Park or Atherton or East Palo Alto. I will change the hierarchy of what's important. For example, the number one issue in East Palo Alto is not canopy fire. Turns out it's flood. Their number two is not, let's say here in Menlo Park, number two would be access and egress or evacuation. There, it's a hazmat incident because they have so many commercial hazmat factories around them. So gas explosion and hazmat issues are number two for East Palo Alto. Number one is flooding / evacuation, where in Menlo Park, because of its diversity, would be entirely different. And in Atherton, our number one problem would be fire, because as beautiful as Atherton is, because of its fantastic foliage and trees, it also has its hazardous issue that has to be mitigated and beforehand and remediated as it happens. So again, I'm available to make those presentations to anyone who wants them. Zoom makes it very, very easy to do that. And we already have the script, we already have the PowerPoint, and we already have the handout, so it's plug and play. Anyone else? Otherwise, I will call it a day.
Thanks again.
Okie doke. Thank you so much. Again, for those of you who have observed, a blessed Easter and Passover to all of you. Blessed holiday to the rest of you. Godspeed. Enjoy a wonderful dinner with your family tomorrow night. And we will see you on May 1st for the next 5-hour presentation. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Tom. God bless.
God bless.